So, so this is basically, so when you start asking questions, every question opens up a door to greater possibility. And it empowers you to know what you know. Every answer disempowers you and just closes the door. So, and every wrongness, everywhere you've decided, oh my God, OCD, ADHD, and all those things is a wrongness, is an answer. And it does not allow you to perceive, know, be, and receive what actually is possible and what capacities are hiding behind those disabilities that are called disabilities. So what if you would unbuy the wrongness, and if you would not buy into the wrongness, what would you actually be aware of? What if you start asking yourself that question every day, whether you have a diagnosis or not? Because we are showering ourselves with so many wrongness on a daily basis. Like, how much time and energy are you using to judge yourself, how wrong you are, how you did this wrong, how you should have done that instead? And your point of view creates your reality. So if you judge yourself your whole day, you will not be able to receive what you're truly capable of. So what if you ask yourself that question on a daily basis? If I would not buy into the wrongness of me, what would I actually be aware of? And notice how that just opens up the door for a totally different space. And it's not where you try to find the answer, or what I'm aware of as an answer. It's just notice when you ask that question, do you relax a little bit more? Does it make you feel lighter? And what if that is actually a valuable product where you start asking the questions that make you feel lighter, that open up the door to knowing what you know? And what do I mean by making you feel lighter? So the tool you can use here is what makes you feel heavy is a lie, and what actually makes you feel lighter is right for you. Because there's so many lies we're telling ourselves on a daily basis. Like, just every time you say I am, you're telling yourself a story about what you've decided you are. For example, I am really wrong, or I'm really disabled, or blah, blah, blah. This is the stories we're telling ourselves every day, and these are the things that are, just notice the energy of it. It's really contractive, it's really heavy, and so what if everything that's heavy is actually a lie you're telling yourself, and everything that's correct, where you go, oh, right, that is actually what's true for you. So when you ask a question like, hey, if I'm unbuying the wrongness of me, if I wouldn't buy the wrongness of me, what would I actually be aware of? Just acknowledge that just asking a question just opens the door to something that's different than the heaviness you've been in training to your whole life. And this is where you start opening the doors to something that's lighter and more right for you than the wrongness you've been buying into. These are also the tools I'm using for my clients, and especially for people with these diagnoses we're talking about, because all they're showered with is the wrongness, because they've been told, you have this diagnosis, there's something wrong with you, and you should do, whatever, and then they learn all kinds of strategies to adapt their handicap, already decided that they have a handicap. What if it's not a handicap, but actually a great capacity? So the tools that I'm using are actually teaching people to ask questions which are taking them out of the wrongness and into different possibility. And another question is, you can ask, what is right about me I'm not getting? Usually people are asking or saying to themselves, oh, I'm so wrong. I should have done, this and this a different way. But if you change your perspective and ask the question, what's right about me I'm not getting, you're setting yourself off to a totally different road. And once again, it's not about finding the answer, like, oh, this is right about me, but just, open the door to a different perspective by asking that question, just receiving the awareness of what's truly possible for you. This is also how I started to shift my own practice as a psychologist from doing psychology from normal operating procedure, the way I've been taught at university, because I noticed that it didn't really work for me. It didn't really create the results that I knew was possible with my clients. When I started out with normal psychotherapy, it created results, but not as well as I knew was possible. So when I started to create pragmatic psychology, where I use these questions and these tools, I actually started to shift and have totally different results, and way faster and way easier than I ever could imagine. And So what is right about me I'm not getting is a really, really great question for you to ask to shift your perspective to something different. Another question that's on that slide, which I love, is if you wouldn't tell or buy the story, what would you know? Because people always, especially in psychotherapy and all that, people are usually just very entrained to the story that they have in their childhood or something, where they well, they like looking for the wrongness or something that didn't work, or were they telling themselves, oh, I cannot do this workshop because I don't have any money, or I cannot do this because I cannot start a relationship because the last relationship was really bad. Everything that comes after because is the story you're telling you to justify why you cannot choose what you truly would like to choose. So the question, if you would not tell or buy the story, what would I know, takes you out of the story and allows you to access what you truly know. Cool. And those tools that I'm using are actually from something that's called Access Consciousness. And if you would like to know more about that, there's also a webpage, www.accessconsciousness.com. So I'm using those tools and applying them to psychology and psychotherapy, and to create what I call pragmatic psychology. And so the next slide on number 9 is actually what we already talked about, the thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So especially with these diagnoses, what you got to acknowledge is that the majority of everything that's going on in your head and you're thinking and feeling and emoting is actually something that's a creation. So 99% of those thoughts, feelings, emotions are actually not yours. They do not belong to you. They're thoughts, feelings, and emotions and things that you're picking up from other people, creations in this reality, from your culture, from your family, things that are supposed to be the way they are in this reality, but they're just an invention, just a creation, and not real. So 99% of your thoughts, feelings, emotions do not belong to you. So like last week, I was working with a client who came to me for neuropsychological testing and to find out whether he had ADHD. And I was working with him, and at one occasion he came with his dad, and we talked about ADHD and what that actually is. And I asked him, so because he said, oh, I also have social phobia. So I asked him, so Truth, all those things that are going on for you when you are meeting other people, where you say, oh, I cannot be there because I get so embarrassed and I get anxiety and all of that when I meet other people. So those things that are going on in your head and in your body that you call anxiety, that you call thoughts and feelings, so how much of that actually does belong to you? Is that really yours? And he looked at me and he said, oh my God, nobody ever asked me that question. I always assumed that the things that are going on in my thoughts and my feelings are mine. And so when I asked him a question, I could see how his whole universe just shifted around. And he looked at him he said, oh my God, you're so right, because all those things that I thought were mine, the thinking, the feeling, and the anxiety, actually do not belong to me. So I asked him, so are you actually aware of what's going on in other people's universes, in their thoughts, in their heads, when you're meeting them? And he said, yes. And it just totally made him feel lighter. And he just acknowledged that the things he called wrongness, social phobia, anxiety, feelings, and thinking, the things that troubled him, that created so much pain and suffering in his world, actually had nothing to do with him. It was merely an awareness of what's going on in other people's universes. And just ask yourself, everything that's going on in your head right now, Truth, who does this belong to? Is this really yours? And when it makes you feel lighter, you just acknowledge, wow, it's not yours. It's just that you're aware of what's going on in other people's universes. So the tool here you can use is every time something makes you feel heavy, something, you have a thought, a feeling, something in your universe going on, you just ask, who does this belong to? And when it makes you feel lighter, it's not yours. And you can just let it go from your universe. And so when I taught him that tool, and he really acknowledged that the things that he was troubled by so much by anxiety and all that when he met other people, what he called social phobia, that they actually had nothing to do with him. He said, oh my God, my whole reality, my whole life just shifts and changes in front of me because the whole things that I thought are wrong about me, I went to psychiatry for, I took medication for, they're actually not even real. I'm not even sick. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm just aware. So after that, he went to his doctor, and the doctor could not confirm that the diagnosis social phobia anymore. He does not take medication anymore, and everything is fine, just from acknowledging that there's not a wrongness going on, just the capacity of an extreme awareness that he hadn't acknowledged and that he didn't have the tools to change and handle. So who does this belong to is a really, really great question, a tool you can use to start shifting every time you're thinking, feeling, and emoting and making yourself crazy with everything that goes on around you. And that's especially, like, for example, when you go Christmas shopping or you can go shopping in a mall, how many times do you have thoughts in your head that say, oh my God, I don't have money to buy this, or I cannot afford this, when it's actually not true for you. So just ask, are you actually picking up the thoughts of other people's in other people's heads? Are they really yours? Next time you are in a situation, ask, who does this belong to? Is that really yours? How much are you troubling yourself and burdening yourself with other people's thoughts, feelings, emotions that have nothing to do with you? And this is where you start to be the space you truly are, rather than buying into the insanity of this reality. And another tool you can use here is the interesting point of view. What if all those things that are going on that you make so real on a daily basis are actually nothing else than an interesting point of view? So let's just practice that together. So just take something that makes you feel really heavy, some upset you have had with a person in the past days. Take that energy and just say that to that upset, interesting point of view, I have this point of view. And then look at it again and say, wow, interesting point of view, I have this point of view about this person. And now do it again. Interesting point of view, I have this point of view about this person. And notice how every time you say that, it just lightens up, because you notice, wow, that was really funny that I even had a point of view about this person. So this is a tool you can start using to untwist you from the insanity of your brain, from your brain footing, into the space you truly are, to open up the space you truly are. So for ADHD and ADD, the person I just mentioned, the client I was working with for neuropsychological testing, when we talked about ADHD, he started to acknowledge that because he said, well, I'm so stressed. I've been told that I should do one thing at a time, because that's, be really structured and take my time. And if I do too much, I will be overwhelmed. I will be stressed out. And I asked him, so truth, whose point of view is that? Who does this belong to? And he said, well, this is what everybody tells me. This is what, this is just what's normal in this reality. And so I asked him, so what do you know? What actually does work for you in your body? And he said, well, I never really been asked that question. So I asked him, so when you were a kid and you did homework, how did you do it? Well, he said, I did my homework and I had the TV on, and I talked to my friends, and then I, maybe got a Coke from the fridge or something, and I asked him, so how did that work for you? Did you get your homework done? Yes, he said, and it was actually easy and fun. So I asked him, so what if you didn't force yourself to do one thing at a time, but actually allowed yourself to have as many things going on at the same time? And he said, wow, that's really crazy. So I asked him, so does that actually make you feel lighter? And he said, yes. And he noticed how his body started to relax, and that actually matched more his way of functioning, his capacities, rather than trying to do one thing at a time. So when he started to acknowledge that and started to, do his homework, his study, and then have Facebook on and email and music and talk to his friends and have as many stimuli going on at the same time, he actually could get his homework, his study done way easier and more efficiently than forcing himself to do one thing at a time, Why? Because ADHD and ADD are these enormous capacity of having many things going on at the same time. It's like being an octopus with many arms where you can have many different projects going on at the same time, where when you try to do one thing at a time, it forces you to go from the space you are into that contraction, and it creates frustration, and it creates anxiety, and it creates, all kinds of OCD stuff that creates you being something that you're not. It's not a kindness to you and your body. So it really is easier when you have more things going on, when you are functioning as ADHD and ADD, rather than just one thing at a time. So the question you can ask is, who or what else can I add to my life? So instead of trying to do only one thing and having as little going on, add and add and add. And the more you have going on, the more it matches your natural way of functioning. It matches your natural vibration, the capacity of living, of creating, the generative creative energy that you and your body naturally are. And OCD, if we go on to the next one,